Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to episode 3 of Correspondent Week. And today I'm delighted to tell you, pre-recording on a Monday morning with me, he's going on a European tour. It's our Aston Villa correspondent, Lee Jackson. How are you, mate?
Very good, thanks, James. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I should offer my congratulations for fully deserving to finish above my absolutely shocking football team last year. But it does add a layer to Villa this year, doesn't it? European football.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit more different this year in terms of whereas last season you could probably predict 9 of the 11 every week. I think it's going to be harder this year. There's going to be some rotation for sure.
Brilliant. That's just what fancy managers wanted to hear, Lee. Thanks very much for that.
Absolutely.
Is it though? Because it's Conference League, right? You could just breeze through the group and play a second string, couldn't you?
Yeah, potentially, but I don't think it's just about Conference League. I think it's about the depth of squad now. Is that whereas previously we had Mings and Konsa at centre back, we've now got Pau Torres and Diego Carlos. That's two really good players who are going to want minutes, irrespective of who we're playing in the Conference League. I think there's going to be a bit of rotation in that area, adding people like Tielemans into the mix and Diaby. We've brought in players here who aren't necessarily squad players. Any of those three new signings could slot into our first 11 quite comfortably for any game.
We
Um,
should we
I
should
think,
say before the group stage, you've got playoff game.
yeah, I mean, it could all
Um,
be over very soon if we get
yes,
unlucky.
that's true. That falls in between game weeks 2 and 3 and 3 and 4. And there are
Yes.
one or two teams you could get, which would present probably a bigger challenge than any three group opponents put together, I should imagine.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we can't take that for granted. I think we'll go very strong for the playoff games, certainly in the first leg. Hopefully, can get that done and then just focus on, like you say, the group stages where maybe we can then rotate a bit more, play some of the youngsters.
What we did when we was in it 2 years ago, we played a Portuguese team, Pacos Ferreira, which was one of the tougher ones we could get, actually. We took a second string team out of Portugal, lost 1-0, didn't play well. And then obviously it was like, oh, don't want to piss about with that. Put the first team out in the second leg and won fairly comfortably 3-0.
Mm,
I wonder if it might be something like that for you, particularly if you have a first leg away, where
yeah,
there might be an attitude to think, get away with this. And if we need to turn it around at Villa Park, we'll turn it around at Villa Park.
yeah, could well be.
So do we need to worry about this right from the start then? Because there's a number of clubs I think we look at and go, oh yeah, from game week 5 onwards, we need to think about rotation because of Europe. For you, is it straight away?
Well, I think if you pinned any Villa fan down right now and said, what's that 11 going to be that starts game week 1? I don't think anyone could tell you confidently. Certainly in that area that I've just said, centre backs, no one's really sure whether Emery's going to say, you know what, actually, Torres is brilliant, but we're going to bed him in slowly and introduce him. But we'll start off with what worked last season. So Dean, Conser, Mings, Cash. Or whether he goes, well, Torres is this ball playing centre back that I've wanted for ages. He's exactly what we need. He goes straight in. But if that happens, I don't think anyone's clear on who comes out. We saw in the most recent friendly, Torres, Mings, and Konsa all started the game, and it was sort of this hybrid back three. Whereas last season we saw the left Moreno bombing forward and being the attacking fullback. This was obviously the other way around, with the left side Torres being the left back and sitting back with Matty Cash bombing on down the right. And I think that's the other thing we might see this season is a bit more flex to who is the opponent, which side do we want to target? Do we want Luca Dean or Moreno to attack down the left where we think we can get at them, or do we want Cash attacking down the right where we think we can get at them? And again, that's not what fantasy managers want to hear because that's going to mean potentially more rotation
But Moreno's obviously injured. When do we expect him back fit?
after the first international break. So
Okay,
not
so not for a
imminently.
while, so sort of mid-September
Yeah.
or something.
And that's the same with Jacob Ramsey as well. So both of them aren't going to start the season.
Looking further ahead into the season, are we looking at a situation at the moment then that Moreno and Cash don't play together? Is that how it currently looks? It's one
That's
or
what
the other and
I
decide
think.
which way you attack from.
I think so, yeah.
So does that apply at this moment with Luca Dean and Matty Cash?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So what does Emery think of Luca Dean? What's your take on it as a player?
I think he likes him. Obviously, he brought Moreno in January. That was his sort of only major signing that really came into the 11 throughout the second half of the season. But when Moreno was unavailable at the end of last season, like Luca Dean played the last 2 or 3 games and did well. I suppose he didn't have much choice in that area, but Luca Dean's done really well for us there, actually. In those games, he didn't look vulnerable in any way. He looks comfortable on the ball. But I think once Moreno is fit, Moreno will be first choice. I don't think we can look at Luca Dean as a fantasy option.
Does that mean Matty Cash? I mean, I guess you can go there at the start, but once Moreno's back fit, Matty Cash potentially isn't a good option anymore then?
I just think it's going to be a bit of a minefield, and it's one of those where I think it might be wait and see. If we can see that Cash is starting every week, then you feel confident to go there. But to start with, no, I wouldn't be touching Cash or Dean.
Okay, so we've narrowed it down to centre backs because you've got 6 4.5 defenders. It feels like it's got to be something good there. If I said to you now, Lee, right, pick one today, who would it be?
It'd be Pau Torres.
Why?
Because the money we've spent and what Emery has said about Torres in the past about how good he is at progressing the ball and stuff, I can't see any way that he's not going to be a regular starter for us. It might be that he doesn't start game week 1, but if you're picking a Villa defender for 4.5, you're probably picking that as a long-term pick rather than a game week 1 pick. I don't think you'd even want to start him necessarily away at Newcastle game week 1, would you? So, yeah, Torres would be the one for me if I was going to go there.
Yeah, I think a number are looking at it because there is good rotation with a few teams. I think Palace is definitely one. Like you could play an Anderson or a Gay at Sheffield United day one when you go to Newcastle, and that flips quite nicely. We probably have the Villa player most often, but I think Palace is one that leans quite nicely against Villa, and players like Anderson, Gay, you know what you're getting in terms of starting, etc. So I guess we're looking at the moment as it would stand, based on what I watched against Brentford on Sunday, if Cash is going to play, there's every chance Pau Torres will be the defensive left back, if you will. But I guess, therefore, if you're going to do it from with Luca Dean on the left-hand side or further into the season with Moreno, we're looking at Carlos as the left-sided centre-back, which then has got to put question into Tyrone Mings' place in the team longer term, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly couldn't tell you with any confidence that Mings is going to start as many games as he did last season. He might, but there's certainly a risk there.
Mings has been the most popular at the moment, and I know his ownership's been a little bit on the dip since you signed Torres. He's in 15% of teams. Can you understand that?
I can understand that because I understand why a lot of people pick the players they do. You've always got that English bias. It's a name that is very well known. But do I understand it as do I think it's a sensible option? No, not at all.
So for you, Tyrone Mings is a void.
Yeah.
Is Pau Torres a void?
Probably. I wouldn't advocate going with the Villa option at the start. I think also if you look at our fixtures, it feels like game week 5 is the right time to go in for me. Partly because the fixtures are better from game week 5, but also because then you've got the first 4 weeks to see, right, what's Emery doing here? What is he going to do? Certainly from a defensive point of view, I think that swing in game week 5 is when I would want to go in.
See, I wouldn't even necessarily say game week 5. I'd arguably say game week 8. And that's interesting because I think it really depends who you speak to on Villa and fixtures. I feel like no team has divided opinion on fixtures more than Villa. Because in those opening 6 weeks, which includes after the point you're saying you go to Stamford Bridge in 6. You've got Liverpool away in 4, obviously Newcastle away opening day. It's Brighton at home in 7. I don't feel great for defensive assets, particularly. No. Then from 8, there's a really good run. Wolves away, West Ham at home, Luton at home, Forest away, Fulham at home. You go to Tottenham, you go to Bournemouth. Good run. Then there's a little run of City Arsenal, which is obviously quite tough again. So I feel like from 8, and yes, you are coming on Clash of Correspondents that week with Bradley Parker, mate, before you go to Wolves. So, but there's plenty of others. I see it more and more on the timeline. People overlooking Villa's fixtures. Villa's fixtures are great at the start. And that's because there is Everton, Burnley and Crystal Palace inside those first 5.
Yeah. But 3 away games in the first 4, I don't like that particularly. Certainly from a defensive point of view. I don't see us going and keeping a clean sheet at Turf Moor necessarily. I don't think that'll be easy at all.
Well, that's the point. If you look at, say, the rotation with, say, Palace as an example I use, When you go to Newcastle, they've got Sheffield United away. When you go to Liverpool, they've got Wolves at home. When you go to Chelsea, they've got Fulham at home.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of one. So this could even be Johnston and Martinez. Feels like a lot for two keepers, to be honest. But Villa Palace is one I think people are particularly looking at rotation. So Concert and I forgot who your other defender is. We ain't spoken about Diego Carlos.
Yeah.
No goes for you at the moment.
I just don't think you can. Either one could play and the other one could miss out. Which is harsh on Konsa and Mings, because it's worth saying how good they were second half of last season. I mean, Mings especially gets a lot of stick from people who
He had a very good
have
season
seen him.
last year.
Yeah, and he was brilliant. But yeah, I don't think Carlos or Konsa you can go for straight away.
I'd take Tyrone Mings off you, mate.
Yeah, I think he gets a lot of stick. I've defended him many a time from people who are saying he's not good enough and stuff. Never let England down in the Euros a couple of years ago either, did he?
I'd also spoil that by saying I would just take just about any left-footed centre-back on the planet at the moment as a starting base. So Tyrone Mings is probably well above my expectations. And why would you move from Villa to Tottenham? You wouldn't at the moment currently. I'd take it if it's Dean left back, are we looking at Concert at right back? Is that the current solution? You mentioned to us about 6 months ago that you thought this would potentially happen with Ezri Konsa.
Yeah, so Konsa played right back when he was at Charlton years ago, and he also played a couple of times at right back under Dean Smith for Villa. And yeah, we saw it in the friendly at the weekend. So yeah, I think it's definitely an option. Emery said that he was happy with Konsa's role at right back after the match, happy with how he performed there. Yeah, he looks comfortable there. He's a really solid defender. He doesn't very often get beaten one-on-one.
But he should be happy with his performance. He turned into Franz Beckenbauer midway through that first half, didn't
he? Yeah, the defending was dreadful there. They just sort of parted and stood back for a minute. He went, all right, then I'll have a go.
If you haven't seen it, Ezri Konsa scored this really interesting goal for Villa against Brentford. It was like, you know, when you had a really good defender in Sunday League football, it was just bigger and stronger than everybody else. It just kept going. It was one of them. So I feel like in analysis, you're saying to me, avoid these defenders.
Yeah, pretty much. I won't have a Villa defender in my team. If I was going to invest defensively, I'd probably go Martinez.
Really? Because that was going to be follow-up question, because a few people have asked me about Martinez, who's obviously solid as consistent, very good goalkeeper. I keep looking at his price of 5 million and going, I've got a choice of 6 at 4.5 in defence. Why do I want to pay 5 million for Martinez? Because the right answer should be in the back line, shouldn't it?
But we always talk about like explosiveness when we talk about midfielders and attackers. But as far as goalkeepers go, Martinez is probably like the most explosive goalkeeper pick you can get. Like, God knows how many times he's hit double digits since he signed for Villa. It must be over 10 or 15 though. Like, he regularly racks up the save points, and you know he's going to walk home with 3 bonus points if we keep a clean sheet. So it feels like, as far as goalie picks go, it's quite an exciting goalie pick, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I could buy into that. I mean, it's numbers. He had that brilliant season a couple of years ago, 186 points. It was 129 the year after and 135 last year, despite obviously real improvements. I'm not sure that feels like enough. When I know like an Alisson, for example, will hit 160-ish. I know he'll hit that. Whereas I can't be convinced that that's where I need Martinez probably to be, 150-ish or above.
Alisson's 5.5 though, isn't he?
He is, yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, he should obviously score more than Martinez, but I think he will, is the point. But the difference with an Alisson is in the past, we probably wouldn't have looked at him because we don't waste a Liverpool spot on Alisson. But now he's possibly more at the table to consider that sort of thing. It feels awkward. It's same price as Onana, Ramsdale, if Arsenal don't buy another goalkeeper. These two clubs feel like they're likely to keep more clean sheets than you. Would that be fair? Yeah,
don't dispute that.
So it makes Martinez, I think personally, a tough pick. And I can't shake one of those 4.5s has got to be good. I think like you, I think Torres. I'm in agreement with that. Because I think it'd be natural for him to go and play left back if we're having that Matty Cash push on the right-hand side. And it's also natural for him to play left-sided centre-back. It's obviously his ideal position. And if it moves where he's going to sit in the middle of the back three because of his distribution, I think that's absolutely fine as well. But I also can't shake the feeling that I don't think Tyrone Mings does lose his place in this team. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I'm not confident that he will. I think it's just one to flag. If anyone's got Mings in their team and they're thinking that he is a dependable 30 odd games a season starter, don't know. There's certainly a
I
risk
think
there.
he is right at the start. I think once Moreno gets fit, though, I think it's in question. I think as it stands, you're quite likely to go with Cash. But then the flip is, I did a piece last week for our advanced tier patrons about how you might particularly line up at Newcastle. And the idea being that I thought the most suitable tactical ploy for you would be to play Luka Dean and shove it down that side and try and push Trippier back as much as possible and
Trippier
stop
back.
him
Yeah.
rather than inviting it forward. Do you see it that way?
Yeah, it's really hard to pick at this moment.
Because the other
I
thing
think
with doing it that way is, do you then want to go into that cauldron at Newcastle, you know it's going to be a big atmosphere, 5:30 kickoff on a Saturday, and if you're going to play Dean at left back, and we're saying Pau Torres left-sided centre back, do you want to go into that environment without Tyrone Mings day one?
Yeah,
Doesn't feel right.
no. And the other flip side of that is, do you say, well, he wants to pick Cash because he sees a weakness down that side of Newcastle where he thinks Cash can get a Dan Burn?
Yes, maybe.
You can flip it either way, can't you? It's, do we pick an attacking fullback to counteract Trippier, or do we pick an attacking fullback to get at them?
What would you expect game two at the moment? So I guess if we're looking at a 4.5 Villa defender, what's going to happen against Everton at home feels more important right now.
Yeah,
So should the short-term pick maybe be Matty Cash? Because essentially, for those who haven't seen what Villa do, basically, it becomes a back three in possession.
yeah.
And the designated fullback that's going to push forward, really push forward, essentially becomes a wide midfield player. It basically breaks the fullback who's offensive plays more like a wing back than a fullback.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about here. So Matty Cash at home to Everton in 2, away to Burnley in 3, I think potentially appeals. It just feels like a massive gamble, though.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, if you've got the bench to cover it, if you're starting with an option where you know you've got a 12th man on the bench who can come in, it's a great upside pick, isn't it? Because if you said right now Matty Cash gets double digits home to Everton, you wouldn't be that surprised, would you?
No,
If he's managed to pull out an attacking return and keep a clean sheet. So yeah, it
no,
does feel like quite an exciting pick.
but also a dangerous one. And from what you're saying in terms of substitute, you know, if the Cash is left out and you've got 5 subs, there's every chance of getting on a pitch, mate.
Yeah,
Even if
a
it
really good
was
point.
to play, say, even to come on for, say, Moussa Diaby late in the game, if you're protecting a lead or something like that, even.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think I'm going to let it go, Lee.
yeah, that's where I'm at as well.
Who's going in then? You ain't going with no Villa.
At the moment, I am going with no Villa. That's what the draft's looking like. The more I think about it, the more I like Watkins as a pick, though. Partly because, like we say, we've got away games, we've got tough fixtures at the start of the season, but he's proved last year under Emery that he's fixture proof. He scored against Man City, he scored against Arsenal. You know he's going to start every game. And 8 million, it's him or Jesus, really, isn't it? But you
So
just feel
does
like,
this rotation early on, does it not apply with him?
no, I don't think so.
Does it apply with just about every other player in the squad?
More or less, I think. I think Diaby will start the season. I think he is the 2 friendlies that we've had since we signed him. He's played in that kind of off the striker position that we saw Buendia and Bailey play last season. So he's not being deployed as one of the wide players in the 4-4-2. He's been deployed as a number 10 behind Watkins, but of course making runs in behind with his pace. 2 goals in 2 for Diaby as well, 6.5 million. So it's the Mitoma and Burmo price point. I think it's definitely one to watch though. He looks really exciting. And of course, obviously, he's 1.5 million cheaper than Watkins. Gets an extra point for goals. Gets clean sheet points as well if we get them. Yeah, I wouldn't put anyone off starting with Diaby, especially as we've got away fixtures, and you think that pace might just be ideal on the counter attack.
Do you think the way you set up will also have an impact on him? And what I mean by that is, I obviously watched the Brentford game, and because the fullback was pushing up from the right-hand side, he was able to get off the flank and go and join Watkins as basically a second centre forward, as a support striker, basically. So he's coming off the flank, getting really high. But then if you do it from the left-hand side, is he start holding the touchline a lot more on the other side? Because the right back behind him won't go forward. Or does he play in a different position then?
No, I think he still plays in that position.
So do you see him so far exclusively as right winger, basically, with freedom to move from that starting place?
Well, it's not so much right winger as central behind Watkins.
That's what I'm saying. Because Cash was going really high, he's within possession, he's just moving into that area straight away.
Yeah,
but if you do it with Moreno on the left-hand side, has he got a whole touchline? Or Dean obviously start the season?
Yeah, he probably does end up going a bit wider if Dean or Moreno's in there.
So have we seen that yet with Dean and Diaby in the same team?
No, I don't think we have.
Yeah, that's interesting. That.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen that.
I think that's another thing that makes me think that Matty Cash, you'll probably start that way to allow him to get off and go and join Watkins. And if that's the case, yeah, he's pretty exciting and interesting at 6.5. I'd put him right at the top of the reckoning with the others. I think that when the pricing opened, it was very much right. Mbumo, Mitoma, Eze, take your pick of what you want. Diaby and possibly now Harvey Barnes as well, really putting themselves in the conversation at that price bracket, actually. Do you feel a need to have a 6.5 midfielder because of that?
Yeah, I think I'll start with one. I've got Mitoma in at the moment, and I like that. I think for 6.5, it's good value for Mitoma, I think.
So you bang that drum about Diaby and then let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. It could become Diaby. I'm not ruling it out, but I will have a 6.5 million mid.
So very interestingly, you mentioned about entry point game week 5. Brighton have got 3 nice fixtures, Newcastle at home, and then go to Old Trafford when you reckon it's the entry point. You're booking that transfer in, aren't you?
It's definitely in my mind, yeah.
That's unlike one of my correspondents to be forward thinking.
The thing is, though, booking transfers in, it never works, does it? You say, oh, yeah, I've got a plan up to game week 6.
I don't think one like that, no.
Game week 2 comes around, you go, oh, hang on, actually, no, I'm going to change my plan now.
Tear it up. No, yeah. I think it's okay to have that principal idea, though, to go Brighton and Villa. And I think, by the way, that's a wider conversation on the defenders as well, because it might even be that Brighton come into that run of Newcastle United, Villa, Liverpool, Man City as 5 of 6 between 4 and game week 9. And it might even be that you start getting into game week 5 and you think, I now want to move. I don't want to look at his Stupid with them fixtures. Yeah. I want to look elsewhere. And it might be by that point we've got a better understanding of Villa, just as Alex Moreno is about to get fit. That's your warning now, by the way, that the situation might change once he's available. So, yeah, I think Brighton players to Villa players might actually be a popular trend we see getting into September.
Yeah.
On Watkins, go back there. I've thought about him a lot more as well, Lee. And I think, like you, it's the sheer consistency to know that even in those 3 tough away games, and I think we have to include Chelsea as one of them at the moment, because we don't know what we're getting, that he is very capable of scoring in these fixtures. That's the big thing for me. If Villa can do well in those games, or if they can score, his goal involvement is going to be high for you, isn't it? Yeah. There's not much doubt that he's going to be clear talisman. I mean, for representation, your second highest scorer in FPL last year was Douglas Luiz.
I was just looking at that, yeah.
Who did well, right? And he's arguably someone you could consider at 5.5. But even with the introduction of Diaby, I don't see Watkins not being the clear standout in terms of scoring points.
Yeah.
His XG from when Emery joined was higher than Harry Kane's in the league.
Wow.
It's not, I keep saying this to people about Villa, that's not over like a 2-month honeymoon period, right? It's 6 months worth of data.
Yeah.
So if I can get that, and if he's consistent over that opening period, and then you've got that real massive swing from sort of game week 7, 8, 9, I'd know I'd want to get him over that period. What's putting me most off, I think, at the moment is I can see me wanting to wildcard over that period.
Yeah.
And then I know Watkins is on the agenda if I do that. So there's that swing there, isn't there? Sort of game week 8 where Arsenal and Manchester City play each other. And there'll be people getting to that point who've got, say, 6 assets between the two and going, I don't want to look at that. And actually both have challenging fixtures after that as well. Arsenal go to Chelsea the following week. City got Brighton, Man United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Tottenham and Villa all up to game week 15. And it might be the time to kind of really rejig things. Villa would be right top of the agenda. I could see me, if I wildcard over that period, I could see me going Watkins and a defensive player. And maybe even subject to what Diaby is doing, maybe even, or Brandia, throw in a third. So if I think I'm going to wildcard over that period, do I want the consistency of Watkins over the first 7 when versus, say, Jesus explosiveness over the same fixtures? Did I just say Jesus and explosiveness in the same sentence? I apologise to all the listeners, sorry.
Yeah, I think that's the call for me. It's one or the other. It's Watkins or Jesus. I don't see myself starting with 3 strikers, and the other striker's obvious.
But you can start Watkins and Jesus. Is there any theory in doing that? Now, that obviously means starting with a front 3.
No, not for me. I think there's too many midfield options. I want that 5 across midfield. I like Fernandez's price. I like Rashford's price. I like Matoma's price. Foden. There's a lot to go after in that midfield. And I don't think I can justify 2 8 million strikers when I've got those options.
So one of the reasons Jesus is really popular is obviously goes without saying it's the fixture list that Arsenal have got, but it's also that security to know whoever pops off from sort of Nkunku and under, you can drop to it. In the case of Watkins, I feel like if I pick Watkins, I don't want to sell. Well, I'm not buying Watkins because of fixtures. I'm buying Watkins because of his consistency. So I want him to hang around and stick around in the team. So going to Watkins with the plan of, I drop that to Nkunku doesn't feel right.
No. Whereas, like you say, with Jesus, you can do that. It feels like that fixture swing lends itself quite nicely into it.
I don't think it's not even so much the swing as such. I think it's just if you pick Watkins, you do it because you absolutely know what you're getting on the tin. And I took the mick out of Jesus and explosiveness, but I suppose people are hoping he does something like he did in game week 2 last year against Leicester.
Yeah.
And then you can take your pick of probably which Chelsea forward you want in, say, game week 3 or 4, for example. Whereas I'm going to sell Watkins. I don't think if I go there, I'm going there because I've gone. You're like a long-term pick for me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to forget about you. And I think you probably have to, you don't have to roll with that, but that would be my intention is to go, you're going in, you're staying in. I've decided I'm doing that. Now, I think the thing with that is if you've also got that opinion with Haaland as well, then you are looking at a front 3. Rather than going Cameron Archer.
That's the other thing with Watkins, though, is he doesn't have that explosiveness that Jesus has. It's very rare you see Watkins get more than 1 goal in a game.
Who'd you play opening day?
Newcastle away.
Remind me how many points he got last time he played
very
him?
Good. Very good. That was a great game.
I realised it was at Villa Park, and I realised it was your best performance of the season and Newcastle's worst simultaneously. Yeah. But yeah, he showed it there, mate. And what did he get in the double game week as well? Chelsea away got a goal, and did he score in the second game as well?
What was the second game?
Leicester. He scored in both, didn't he?
Yeah.
So I know that's over 2 games, but I mean the Newcastle game showed, particularly in the game at Villa Park. And the thing is as well, anybody who watched that game, he could have had more.
Oh yeah, he should have had more.
The post 100%. After about 20 seconds, didn't they? Pope had another couple that he saved from him during the game as well. Easily could have put 4 or so on the board in that particular game. So I think it is there. And obviously Villa played to strengths. He's changed a lot under Emery, hasn't he? There's less of this pulling short and pulling wide. There's more about maximising space in behind for him and being in the right place.
He said that on BT Sport when they interviewed him before the Arsenal game at home. He said the biggest thing that Emery said to me is he says, don't drift wide. This is the width of the penalty area. Stay there, stay central, save your energy for when you need it. Don't be making these runs to the channels all the time. And yeah, it seems to be working.
Do you think, and it's not something that matters when you're choosing the player at the start, but do you think he's capable of 200 points?
Yeah, I do. I really think that he's got the potential to kick on. I think he had a bit of a psychological block with finishing for some time, but I think the confidence that Emery and Emery's coaching staff seem to have given him now mean that he's in a position where he has that confidence. I think selling Ings as well was a big one, big vote of confidence for him to say, "Look, you're the main man now. Go and show him what you can do." And he did.
Would you rather start with Watkins or Trent?
Oh, that's tough.
Sorry, mate.
So tough. See, I've got such a soft spot for Trent. Um, Probably Trent. It's
So
so hard though.
that was part why I asked the 200-point question, because I think really Trent, we want him to get back to that level, right?
Yeah.
To hit the 200 points, and Watkins capable of it as well. And we don't do this as a comparison.
Mm.
Watkins versus Trent, the same bloody price.
Yeah, yeah.
But there is a relevance to that. And the other benefit, of course, if you do go Watkins go front three, in theory, maybe put a little bit less on your bench as well with say a 4.0 defender, which obviously you can't do with a forward. You said, Lee, not much doubt on Watkins in terms of starting and stuff.
Mm.
But is Cameron Archer the best 4.5 forward at the moment?
I think Cameron Archer is a really exciting prospect, but he's not going to be. He certainly won't be starting ahead of Watkins. I don't see there being a position where, like, every few games there's a bit of rotation and he starts one and then Watkins is on the bench. I think the best you can hope for from Archer is some minutes off the bench. And even then, I think it's probably more likely he's going to play in our cup competitions than Premier League matches.
Is John Duran staying? There's been some speculation he'd go already.
Yeah, he's staying.
He's staying.
Emery's come out and said Duran and Archer are my backup strikers, and I'm happy with that. He's certainly, unless he's bluffing, he's made out that we're not signing any other strikers, and I'm happy with Archer and Duran as backup to Watkins.
Okay. Hypothetical. Watkins gets injured in one of your upcoming friendlies. Lazio Thursday, Valencia Saturday, is it? Or is it the other way around?
Yeah,
You got a couple in close. If Watkins gets injured in one, which one of them two starting up front at Newcastle?
Archer, I think.
So you do think Archer's ahead of John Duran,
Duran, yeah, I
who,
think
for the
so.
benefit of the patrons, I can tell you is not from Ireland or England. It's a private joke that most people aren't going to get. So you think Archer's ahead of him?
Yeah, I do. Archer's a bit older. Duran still feels very raw. He's only 19. And also, Duran hasn't been on the pre-season tour with them. So I think Archer's with the squad. He's up to speed. He's played quite a lot of minutes in these friendlies. If Duran gets a lot of minutes in the next couple of friendlies, then maybe my view would change. But as of right now, yeah, if Watkins gets injured, I think Archer's starting game week 1.
I see with Archer, I see him getting bits, last 10, last 5 minutes of games and stuff if Watkins
Mm,
has run out of gas. And that may happen quite a bit. I think maybe even particularly at the start of the season. I can see that. And I know it's like, oh, that's not enough, but there isn't a 4.5 sitting there at the moment that we can feel anything better than that
No,
about.
that's it. As much as I'm sort of talking down Archer in terms of his minutes, out of the 4.5 forwards, he probably is, like you say, the best pick. But it's slim pickings, isn't it,
Yeah,
really?
I think picking him also comes down to a relevance of how many other Villa players can you see yourself having. There'd be nothing worse than, let's say you go Archer Torres as an example, and suddenly, I want Diaby and Watkins, and structure
Mm,
wise, you're like, oh, sugar, this doesn't work, for example. There's probably a consciousness of that. Archer becomes a better pick if you're not going to go with any other Villa players at the start.
yeah.
If you are, then it becomes a do I want to go down that road? I see him um playing the Europa Conference League games, Archer.
Yeah, me too.
I think that's absolutely perfect to get him established in terms of feel his importance within the football club,
Yeah.
gives him regular minutes. He gets a game every couple of weeks, doesn't piss about with Watkins playing in the Premier League. I think that's the right solution. And the squad depth you've had, we've spoken about the defensive players, already means that you can pick a second string team offensively in the Conference League where possible.
Yeah.
And you're not going to fall apart and look terrible. The squad depth you've got growing now is good, mate.
Mm. Yeah, I'm really excited for it. I mean, it really is a selection headache. I mean, the area we haven't really talked about is midfield and holding midfield roles, where we've now got Kamara, Tielemans, Luiz, Dendoncker. And then if you start talking about the wider midfield, you've got obviously McGinn, Ramsey, Buendia, Bailey. There's a lot.
Diaby.
Diaby, yeah.
Yeah. Is Kamara the only one that's really suitable to play an out anchor role in midfield?
I think so, yeah. I mean, Tielemans in these friendlies has been playing pretty deep, though. It's been a double pivot of Kamara and Tielemans at
No.
times. Tielemans certainly I wouldn't be advocating as an FPL pick. He not only is he not nailed, but even when he has been playing, he hasn't been getting forward particularly. Luiz has been the one that's been more attacking than Tielemans when the three of them were on the park. Um, yeah, yeah, Kamara's the only one that you would say, I think. Dendonka, I guess. He's certainly a more defensive-minded player.
He was really, I want to say he played in that Newcastle game. Am I right in saying that?
No, no, he hasn't played anything. He got married, actually, so he stayed
No,
at home.
sorry, the 3-0 win against Newcastle
Oh,
last
yeah,
season.
sorry. I thought you meant the friendly.
Yeah, he played really well. He's a player I've been quite critical of. He played really well, actually, in that particular game. So he'd probably, yes, second in line if... But we're not looking at Kamara and saying he's going to play every game, are we? Because it could be Luiz and Tielemans, couldn't it? Particularly if they are going to play as share the duty, if you will.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I think Kamara's probably the number one pick, though, from that central midfield option. I'd expect him to start most games.
When you say number one pick, just to clarify, you're not saying for fantasy, are you?
Absolutely not.
No, I didn't think you would. So we mentioned obviously about Douglas Luiz being your second highest scorer last season in FPL, which feels utterly ridiculous, actually. I was just going to pull up for you, Lee, while I blag this, where he ranked against other 5.5 midfielders last
That's
season.
exactly what I was starting to look at. Oh, he's the highest.
And he's the highest.
Yeah.
Quite comfortably.
Jensen.
Matthias Jensen of Brentford 132, Philip Billing 126. You got the Everton duo of Iwobi McNeil 126, Andreas Pereira less, and we should obviously clarify. Obviously, Andreas Pereira missed the end of the season with injury. Douglas Luiz 142 points is no joke, and you're sitting there and going, actually, when he's playing with Tielemans, this Douglas Luiz is getting forward more.
Yeah.
Should he be a consideration here versus say Inciso at the same price?
Again, it feels like one of those ones where explosiveness versus safe, steady pick. Because we know Enciso is an electric, exciting player who could get a brace in any given match. But Luiz, I think, is the more sensible pick, as in, he's going to chip in with an odd assist here and there, an odd goal here and there. And at that 5.5 million price bracket, I don't see anyone else that I would pick above Luiz.
Do you know how many attacking returns he got last season? Don't look.
Quite a lot. There was a lot of assists in there. He didn't very often get bonus points. I'd probably guess about 10 or 12.
13.
Yeah.
6 goals, 7 assists. Hold on, mate. It's 1 in 3. I'll take that for my 5.5 midfielder, I think.
It's good, isn't it? And like you say, those numbers could be better this season if Tielemans is going to play behind him.
Is he still in the majority of the corners, Douglas Luiz?
No, this is an interesting one.
Because he takes these wicked ones in swinging. He's trying to score from them, isn't he? I mean, I know he just scored one at Arsenal last season.
So from the left-hand side, Luiz will take those in-swinging ones. But what we saw against Fulham when he came on, and more crucially in the in the Brentford friendly the other night, Douglas Luiz and Diaby both started, and from the right-hand side, Diaby was taking corners.
So we're looking at in-swingers completely now.
Yeah, I think so.
But then Luiz was never a threat from that side, taking the out-swingers anyway.
No, he wasn't, but he was on them is the point, whereas Diaby's taken them off him now.
Trying to think of you scoring goals from that side. I can't. Those in-swingers he takes, it's like he's taking a shot, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, he scored 3 of them.
Yeah, it was Bolton in the cup. There's another one. I can't remember the other one.
Arsenal at the Emirates.
Yeah, you've made up the third, I think. Was it in training?
No, it was a pre-season friendly against Walsall.
Brilliant. Feel better. We've all missed that one. We'll take your word on that one. Oh, I'm sure it exists on YouTube. Any consideration, Douglas Luiz, mate?
Yeah, I think if you need a 5.5 million, if you've got that bit extra, go for it. I'm not going to put anyone off.
I'll be honest, it doesn't feel right.
As in, if you were going to go there, you'd rather just go down to a 4.5.
I'm looking at it and going
bench product.
13 attacking returns, and it shocks when you hear that. Douglas Luiz 13 attacking returns, and you're saying it could be better. I'm not sure it can or will be. It feels it's more likely to come down than go up. Would be my take. Do we look at Douglas Luiz now and say, I think you can get me attacking return every 3 games? Is that how we're now viewing him?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, then, I don't see why not.
If that's the case, then he should really come into consideration. What I'd say is I'd rather pick him than your likes of like Jordan Ayew and stuff like that. Like, yeah. Sure. His ownership will be low.
The industrial Jordan Ayew.
Douglas Luiz is a little bit more than industrial. Will he definitely stay? It's worth saying.
Who, Douglas Luiz?
Because links do still come about with him, don't they?
Yeah, no, I think he will. He got player of the season last year for Villa. The fans absolutely love him. And I think he's got a real connection now with the club. And I think he is happy there. Certainly the way that he was celebrating, probably more than anyone at the full-time whistle at the end of the season when we qualified for the Conference League, would suggest that he wants to be involved in that European tour next season. So no, I'd be really surprised if he ended up leaving.
Okay, so what would be, in your opinion, let's say everyone's fit, what's first choice across that midfield if we call it a group of 5? What would be first choice to you at the moment in terms of the midfield behind Watkins?
So with Jacob Ramsey injured, I think Buendia plays on the left. I think you've got Kamara, Luiz, and then you've got McGinn on the right with Diaby behind Watkins.
So you're leaning more into this. Does Diaby in a central role?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's dependent on Matty Cash, whether it's that or not. Because I think it will look like that if Matty Cash plays. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Would you prefer him in that area, essentially, Diaby?
Yeah, I think so. I think those runs in behind, I'd rather he'd be making those runs in behind centrally than out wide.
Okay. No place for Tielemans in that team.
No, and that's sort of the honourable mention, I guess, that it could be Tielemans, but right now I think Tielemans would probably start on the bench.
Okay. Couple of quick ones, quick fire. Do you need a new goalkeeper?
We need a new second goalkeeper because
this is where I was leaning to.
Yeah, I thought you meant are we selling Martinez? No, but yeah, we do need a second goalkeeper. But Emery's come out in the last 48 hours and said I'm happy with Olsen and Martinez. So
yeah, he's not going to come out and say I'm unhappy with Olsen, is he?
No, he's not. But he very vocally backed like this. These are my goalkeepers.
He's an experienced keeper, isn't he? But I think he gives people the jitters, doesn't he?
Yeah, massively. And it might be that that's just a nerves thing that he gets over it at some point. But yeah, I don't like it. I would have much rather we strengthen there and pay a little bit of money to get a younger, upcoming goalkeeper to be the number 2.
Okay. Any chance of Callum Chambers or Courtney Hawes getting a look in here?
Horse, no. Chambers, yeah, I think he'll be in and around the squad.
I guess Chambers holding role as well, maybe in midfield even.
Yeah. So Emery said he doesn't see Chambers as a centre back. He sees him more as a cover at right back or defensive mid, and he's used him more at defensive mid since Emery came in than anywhere else.
Yeah, interesting. Just thinking longer term here. If you go back to attacking from left back with Moreno pushing on and Constable's unavailable, he's probably the most suitable profile in the squad to then play the right back position as it stands with Ashley Young gone.
Yeah, it's more natural to him, I think, than Conser. That's what he's saying.
Okay. Is he likely to stay, Chambers?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Talk to me briefly about a couple of kids. Timo Robenham.
Yes.
And I don't mean necessarily for FPL here. Just tell me about him.
Yeah, so Robenham was at QPR last season. Did really well. I know most of the Villa fans are quite excited about him, but they didn't take him on the tour to the US.
Been injured, isn't he, I think?
Yeah, I think he got a knock, but that was disappointing because we thought he was going to be featuring more. But yeah, like the look of him. I think he's one that might get minutes in the Conference League.
Holding midfielder?
Yeah, midfielder. But I think where his best position is still TBC a bit, because he played out wide a bit for QPR last season, as well as being holding midfield. But he's really good technical player, really good touch, movement, that sort of thing. So yeah, exciting one.
Player who's featured regularly in pre-season, we've not mentioned on this pod, James Philogene-Biddens.
Yeah, Philogene's looked electric. I mean, he's sort of filled in that role where JJ had been playing on that left side quite a bit, and he looked really exciting. He's
not short of confidence. He tried a bicycle
No,
kick in the Brentford game.
he did, yeah. No, he's more than confident enough to try and beat a man. Doesn't always work, obviously, but yeah, bags of confidence. Really exciting player to look at, and another one that I think will get minutes in the Conference League. He might even get a look in the starting 11.
He's 4-5. Is there any chance
Jacob
of that?
Ramsey injured? There is.
I'll tell you why I point him out particularly is because if he did start at 4.5, he's interesting because there could be something a little bit like with Elliot Anderson at Newcastle. It's like if it starts at that price, it's got big potential.
Yeah. I think it's him or Buendia on the left, game week 1. But I think it will be Buendia.
It would possibly be a big ask to play against Trips, game week 1. I wonder if he was starting with Everton at home, if he'd have more of a chance.
Yeah.
And then if he's played that first one, then it's like, okay, now play at Newcastle, could be. Yeah, he'll be in and around it, I think. And a young lad, I presume, won't be involved, but I know he's caught the eye, Amari Kellyman.
Yeah.
And he's 17. Yeah, what can you tell us about him?
17 years old. Yeah, looks really exciting. He had a nearly scored a goal against Newcastle, but then hit the post and Buendia got the tap in. But yeah, he's really exciting as well. He's more of a forward, so he actually played in Watkins' position against Walsall in our first pre-season friendly. But yeah, another really exciting one, a bit more raw than the other ones we've spoken about. So he's yet to go out on loan anywhere. So I think it's most likely that he'll go out somewhere on loan this season. But we could be sat here in 12
even
months'
at that
time.
age, you'd think you'd keep him more around it. I think at 17, rather than send him out on loan.
Yeah, I suppose.
If he was 19, 20, I mean, a little bit more, but it's quite unusual for players that young to go out on loan, I think.
We'll see. I suppose it depends on Conference League as well. It might be that Emery wants and thinks he's ready to have minutes in that. So
yeah, the only thing you're saying forward, obviously Duran and Archer are going to go and get minutes in that, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Lee, thank you so much. Really enjoyed that. Do you think you'll do any more transfer business?
No, I think we might be done.
You are very good at getting your business done early. Yes, I wouldn't be surprised. I probably at this stage would foresee if there was an injury, then yeah, maybe go back and invest if they can find the right deal. But yeah, it feels like Villa might be settled. That's no bad thing, by the way. Where do you think you'll finish?
I think there's always this expectation of a drop-off, isn't there, when you get into Europe for the first time? You look at what happened with going back to the likes of Burnley, West Ham and Leicester more recently. I think we will finish 7th.
Would you rather win the Conference League or finish top 4?
Win the Conference League.
Why?
Because I'm 31 years old and I haven't seen Villa win a trophy in my lifetime.
What year was you born?
92. So we won the League Cup in 94, 96. Yeah, funnily enough, I don't remember it that well.
It's your first year in existence. Villa finished 2nd, yeah?
Yep.
It's been downhill since then, mate. You are very much on the rise. How many correspondents do you think predicted you finish top 6?
Not many. 2 or 3?
7.
Top 6.
And if you'd asked me, you'd have an 8th.
Wow.
I've got you 6th at the moment, mate. I think you're very good. My only reasoning not to put you there at the moment, based on what I saw of 6 months worth under Unai Emery, would be the distraction of Europe. Yeah. I think as it stands right now, sure, reputation-wise, maybe bigger and more experienced, but Chelsea and Tottenham have got work to do. Brighton have got their own distraction as well in terms of Europe. And admittedly, as we'll find out later in the week, Brighton's squad depth is much bigger than I think we realise. Your manager is extremely well versed in terms of European competition, so there's every chance you'll go all the way in it. But he's also used to managing that. He's not going to be new for him. He's used to managing it. The depth of the squad looks bigger. I would say one caveat on that is Watkins would have to stay fit.
Yeah.
I think if Watkins doesn't, then that's unlikely. But as it stands now, you would, in my mind, be a possible contender for top 4. And I think we'll finish 6th.
Hope so. I'd take that. I'd be delighted with 6th.
That would be brilliant progress, mate.
And like you said,
was it 7th you finished in the end?
Yeah, 7th, it was 7th. A lot depends, like you say, on your Tottenhams and Chelseas. If either of those two, with the new manager, really do hit the ground running, then of course that makes it much harder.
But here's the thing: once you get in there, right, and the key for Villa now, I do see parallels to when we first got into Europe in like 05, 06 and that, where it's like stay in there, keep building, build a challenge. Your club is of similar size to mine, in the sense of, right, lock it down now, put yourself in contention where people are now saying, right, Villa aren't this team that got promoted 3-4 years ago. This is now regular qualifiers for Europe, Aston Villa, and you got perfect manager for that as well, in that sense. So yeah, and what we've seen, the additions you've made, the squad depth, like I said, as long as Watkins stays fit, I think 6th would be a realistic target.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong. The reason I hope I'm wrong is because my team's obviously in competition, not because I wish anything bad against you. Good luck for the season, mate. Anything you want to promote?
Just a shout out to Liverpool correspondent Dan. He's got some leagues that he's running and he's looking for recruits. So if anyone wants to join,
he told everyone that on the last pod. You won't have heard that yet.
There you go. There's 2 shout outs now.
Bloody hell, these leagues are special, aren't they? I'm glad I'm in them. Fantastic, mate. Good luck for the season. Next up, one team with respect, Villa probably won't finish above this season. It's Jonny Pringle, treble winners, Manchester City, are next up on Correspondent Week. But thanks again to Lee. Cue music, please, man child.